Als Moschiach wird schon kommen. Als Moschiach wird kommen. Wir machen das so, den und was wollen wir essen auf der Sudan-Ju? Dem Schorhabor mit Liosen, dem Schorhabor mit Liosen, dem Schorhabor mit Liosen wollen wir essen. Auf der Sudan-Ju. Und wer wird uns trinken auf der Sudan-Ju? Dem Jain am Yeshua. Dem Jain am Yeshua. Dem Jain am Yeshua werden wir trinken, dem Schorabor mit den Leviosen werden wir essen. Auf der Sudan-Ju. Und wer wird uns teure sagen auf der Sudan-Ju? Rabbeinu wird uns teure sorgen, dem Jain am Schummer werden wir trinken, dem Schorabor mit den Leviosen werden wir essen. Auf der Sudan-Ju. Und wer nun wird uns spielen auf der Sudan-Ju? Rabbeinu wird uns teure sorgen, dem Jain am Schummer werden wir trinken, dem Schorabor mit den Leviosen werden wir essen. Auf der Sudan-Ju. Und wer wird uns Chochmisse sagen, auf der Sudan-Ju? Rabbeinu wird uns teure sorgen, und Jain am Schummer werden wir trinken, dem Schorabor mit den Leviosen werden wir essen. Auf der Sudan-Ju. Und wer wird uns tanzen auf der Sudan-Ju? tanzen. Schleime, Melech wird uns Chochme sagen. Moschen, Melech wird uns spielen. Moschen, Melech wird uns Teure sagen. Im Jahr, wir schon mal wollen wir trinken. Im Scholler, wir Livios wollen wir essen. Auf der Sonne, wenn ich nehm der Mannen sich, wenn ich bin a Kind gewesen in der Heim, in Städtele am Moor, in die schöne Winternacht pflegen mir spazieren gehen und Chalamen, Chaloines Oi, wie denn wollt ich gewähn, asoi harzig, asoi schön, wenn mir Flänge gehen vorbei die Schul. Und der Hasen, so schöne Stimme, hat geklingen, so früh bei dem Abend mit Preisgefühl. Schön, das Bäumele, das Milchel, will ich vernach sein. Was ist geworden von ein Städtele? Was ist geworden von einer denk ich, als sei noch die Kaiser. Es geht doch nicht weg an Nacht a Tag, und nur ich tracht von dir, und nur ich träum von dir, von dir, du Leben mein. Zeiten wird kommen zu gehen, wenn die Jiden in Eretz Israel allein stehen. Sitzt und Becher in der rechten Hand, macht Bruch auf dem ganzen Land. Oh, mein, das ist wahr, Moschiach mit kommen, heintiges Jahr. Oh, mein, das ist wahr, Moschiach mit kommen, heintiges Jahr. Schnirrle, Perle, Gilde von Moschiach ben Dodi sitzt heim und hat Becher in der rechten Hand, macht Brüche auf dem ganzen Land. Oh, mein, Moschiach mit kommen, heintiges Jahr. Oh, mein, das ist wahr, Moschiach mit kommen, heintiges Jahr. Schnirrle, Perle, Gilde von Moschiach mit Dodi sitzt heim und hat Becher in der rechten Hand, macht Brüche auf dem ganzen Land. Oh, mein, das ist wahr.
Shabbat Shalom, Happy Pride! Page 168, Psalm 118, page 168.
Yeshua.
Joy is an act of spiritual and political resistance. It's not easy to access all the time, and boy, this is a day where it is really hard to access. Anger, despair, fury might be a little closer to the surface. That's for sure true. Here we are, however. God works in mysterious ways. The Supreme Court every year this week gives out a lot of decisions. Sometimes they've been pretty fantastic. Who remembers June 24th, 2011? That wasn't a Supreme Court decision, that was New York State deciding that gay marriage was legal during our For Pride Shabbat service. This week, however, how shall we say? First, we had a decision which effectively dismantles the separation of church and state in this country. This decision might not have been as visible as the ones that emerged later this week, but the decision that the Supreme Court handed down earlier this week about a school in Maine said that it is okay for tax dollars to be used to pay for religious education, dismantling the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. As a religious person, I am outraged because the separation of church and state is exactly what has protected Jews from the very beginning of this country. We will see now the erosion of the wall that Thomas Jefferson spoke about of separating church and state. That was terrible. And then there was the decision yesterday which said that concealed carry laws in a state like New York, which cares about gun control, violates the Second Amendment. Is that the Second Amendment? Of the Constitution, meaning that states don't have the right to enact gun control laws because the Supreme Court has decided that states don't have the authority to determine what kind of gun control laws we want. However, today, the Supreme Court has determined that states have all the rights they want when it comes to violating women's right to choose. Here we are this week. I hate saying this, I really do. No, I shouldn't say it, right? Don't say it. All right, I'm just gonna say it once, okay? Just let me let it out of my system. It's gonna get worse. I've been saying that since November 3rd, 2016, as a way of preparing us, because we could all see what's coming down the road. And many of us, are too pampered and coddled and have not experienced the world in a way to be ready for the emerging fascism that is coming into this country. Here we are. So, where do I look for inspiration or help in these moments? People know this about me. I look at ancestors, because guess what? We haven't had it as bad, or even there are others who have lived through things that we can't even imagine in our lifetimes, but other people have found ways to respond to evil in the world. Some of you, and I know there are a lot of lawyers in this crowd, know that on March 1857, the Supreme Court passed the Dred Scott decision. The Dred Scott decision said in words that the U.S. Constitution does not include American citizenship for people of African descent. Freed blacks, enslaved blacks were not granted citizenship by the Constitution of the United States and were not considered to be people. Therefore, that decision, the Dred Scott decision of 1857, allowed for the explosion and the continuation of slavery in all different ways. March 1857. 2 months later, Frederick Douglass gave one of his greatest speeches ever given in the history of the United States. Frederick Douglass, who had been an enslaved black human being, emerged from slavery, educated himself, and become one of the greatest orators and writers in this country. I'm going to read brief excerpts from it. I encourage everyone to study this speech 2 months after Dred Scott decision was passed by the Supreme Court of the United States. He delivered this speech to the American Anti-Slavery Society on Nassau Street here in New York City. This infamous decision of the slave-holding wing of the Supreme Court maintains that slaves are within the contemplation of the Constitution of the United States. Property. That slaves are property in the same sense that horses, sheep, and swine are property. That the old doctrine that slavery is a creature of local law is false. That the right of the slaveholder to his slave does not depend on local law, but is secured wherever the Constitution of the United States extends. That Congress has no right to prohibit slavery anywhere, that slavery may go in safety anywhere under the Star-Spangled Banner, that colored persons of African descent have no rights, that colored men of African descent are not and can never be citizens of the United States. You might readily ask me, how am I affected by this devilish decision, this judicial incarnation of wolfishness? My answer is, and no thanks to the slave-holding wing of the Supreme Court, my hopes were never brighter than now. I have no fear that the national conscience of this country will be put to sleep by such an open, glaring, and scandalous tissue of lies that this decision is and has been shown to be. The Supreme Court of the United States is not the only power in this world. It is very great, but the Supreme Court of the Almighty is greater. Judge Taney can do many things, but he cannot perform impossibilities. He cannot bail out the ocean, annihilate the earth, or pluck the silvery star of liberty from our northern sky. He may decide and decide again, but he cannot reverse the decision of the Most High. He cannot change the essential nature of things. He cannot make evil good, and he cannot make good evil. Happily, for the whole human family, our rights are defined, declared, and decided in a court higher than the Supreme Court. If you read through the entire speech, and I urge you to, you'll see that you could replace the references to enslaved human beings to women, and this speech will speak precisely to the moment. And he ends this speech. In conclusion, let me say, all I ask of the American people is that they live up to the Constitution, adopt its principles, imbibe its spirit, and enforce its provisions. When this is done, the wounds of my bleeding people will be healed. The chain will no longer rust on their ankles. Their backs will no longer be torn by the bloody lash. And liberty, the glorious birthright of our common humanity, will become the inheritance of all the inhabitants of this highly favored country. The ability to at once hold these multiple realities is what we're called upon to do right now. To both carry the despair and the fear and the anger, and to know that democracy itself is at stake. It is absolutely what those who are on the side of supporting these decisions of this week, and we must see them all as deeply connected. They are all about undermining democracy in this country. The thing that is exactly desired by that side is that we give up. That we feel like they're too big, it's too powerful, it's over, they've won. And that, my beloved friends, pride comes to teach us is not true. Exactly this moment, this particular holiday in our lives, we're not just celebrating the freedoms that have come, we're celebrating the human beings like Frank Kameny, who didn't give up from the 1950s when he was fired from the federal government for being gay. His response was to organize through the Mattachine Society the foundations of what would become Stonewall 20 years before Stonewall. So we have to learn this very difficult message, and we who have been working so hard to develop our muscles of both gratitude and our muscles of awareness of the blessings and not only the curses, we have to find a way to express the despair, the sadness, the fear, but to understand God is on our side. The right and truth of the world will emerge. That our job is to continue building a foundation for the future, whether or not those of us as individuals make it. Hope is not a strategy. It's not based on reality. And that is so much of what the LGBT movement has embraced. There is no reason any one of us of a certain generation who went through the process of coming out and emerging as gay when there was not an iota of proof in our families, in our religious institutions, in our schools, in our governments that said that we would be okay. It's faith. And we cannot be defeated by this as much as we want to curl up into a ball and just cry. And tonight, we are going to celebrate the spirit of resilience and strength and power, because we will not be defeated. That doesn't mean the victories will be quick or obvious, but we will keep developing these strengths, these muscles of hope and of resilience, because, you know what? The options are not great. If we give up, if those of us in this room and those downstairs, hello everybody in the Wolfson community room, named for Evan Wolfson, who believed in the possibility of marriage equality years before anybody else did. So guess what? As Mordecai said to Esther, if you are alive in this moment, if you are alive to hear these horrible decisions and the tsunami of bad news that's coming at us, it means God has a plan. Whether or not you believe in God, you are here for a reason. Be the reason other people believe in the goodness of humanity. Remember, none of us can do everything, but all of us can do something. Create beauty in the world in which ugliness is so dominant. Be the reason something's a little extra sparkly, maybe a little bit more glitter, maybe a little bit more love. And I do believe that we shall overcome. Not maybe today or tomorrow, but there are enduring realities that we will be a part of creating. And this community, and the arts that we'll celebrate tonight with Jeffrey Seller, and the political leadership that we're going to celebrate with Congressman Mondaire Jones with us tonight. All these things create a tapestry of a vision for a future. Sing out, Louise. Tonight is a night to really sing. We're going to celebrate many things tonight, and in lighting the candles, I want to invite our outgoing Cooperburg Master Rabbinical Intern, Rabbi Dave Yedid, and his husband of how many days? A week? 12 days. And as they come up to light the Shabbos candles and we celebrate the gay pride we feel, that you two have found each other, that you have grown in a world in which it's possible to be married and celebrated by your family and your traditions, I'd like to introduce to the congregation, which we do at every one of these Pride services, the incoming interns. Two of them are now in Israel, so I'd like to invite them to come on the Zoom so we could see them. Eliza Schwartz, Adam Glaubart, And we have a third intern this year, as we did with Atara Cohen, who's going to be our Cooperberg Ripmaster, pastoral and educational intern, whom we're really delighted to have a third doing those special roles, and you'll hear a lot more about that, and we're thrilled. She's not in Israel, but the two others are in Israel, but we're thrilled to have Abigail Halpern as our third intern. So welcome, and everybody wave and say hello. And we'd like you to stay on while we light the Shabbos candles, and we're so happy to see you, and September 1st, we'll welcome them to the community. So Dave Yedid and Daniel, will you come and light the Shabbos candles? The blessing is on page 38. We are so grateful to the one who has created us for allowing us to reach this day, to live to see this moment. Please stand if you are able. Please remain standing as we welcome angels of peace to enter into our souls, our bodies, our communities, our family, our city, our world. Shalom Aleichem, page 40.
Oh
And as you sit down, wish good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom, introduce yourself to someone you don't know, welcome somebody new. All right, Jews, you can stop talking now. Jews and Jew-adjacent people who are here, we've got some serious talkers. So as we have for several years, I've got the microphone so I can be louder than you. As we have for several years, we're delighted to have a distinguished and important political leader to offer some pride greetings and a few words of introduction. We invited Congressman Mondaire Jones to offer our Martin Luther King Day Shabbat Drash this year. You might remember it was entirely on Zoom, and he was very, very accommodating. We were so grateful. And we thought, wow, this is now our biggest service in person since 2019 in this space. How wonderful it would be. How wonderful it would be to invite back this great leader in the New York City delegation, to not just New York City, the New York State delegation to Congress. He is, like so many of our electeds, in the middle of a reshuffle of all of the districts. He has been representing New York 17, which includes Rockland and Westchester, but he will be representing or running for New York 10. So there's a lot of different shuffling going around. So right now, he is the congressman of the 17th district of New York State, and he was the nation's first openly gay black member of Congress. A New York native, he grew up in Section 8 housing, raised by a single mom. Let's hear it for single moms. Yay! He attended public schools. Let's hear it for public schools. And then he earned degrees from Stanford University and Harvard Law School. Okay, that's all right. And he worked in the Obama administration. Let's hear it for the Obama administration. Mondaire has championed strengthening our democracy, protecting fundamental rights like abortion and marriage equality, making housing affordable, Medicare for all, and universal child care. I am delighted to invite Congressman Mondaire Jones to offer us some pride greetings.
Thank you, Rabbi, for that very spirited introduction and for all of the applause. I never imagined I'd be able to attend in person a service something like what I attended virtually in January of this year, and those too were horrifying times. We were trying to get democracy-saving legislation passed through the United States Congress, and we did it in the House, and I was proud to have co-authored it, but unfortunately it was filibustered in the Senate like some scene out of the Civil Rights era. And then we got this week's series of Supreme Court decisions, as you alluded to. But I am not giving up hope. In the same way that I said I wasn't giving up hope in January, or the generations in this country have faced over time odds that were longer than what we face today. How dare any of us give up? Given the history of this country and the progress that we have secured. And of course, progress must be fought for and protected. Those are two different projects and they are inextricably linked. I'm honored to be with you today as we come together for Shabbat and to celebrate Pride Month, and we should be celebrating Pride Month. Let's give a round of applause. Because celebration is healthy and joy is resistance, Rabbi. Thank you for saying that earlier. That was very moving, especially given what we're dealing with today. As the first openly gay black member of Congress, you might imagine that Pride Month means a lot to me. Like many of you, I grew up closeted. I also grew up in the Baptist church where things have gotten better, but it's still taboo to be gay. For most of my life, I thought I was going to hell. I was so afraid that somebody would find out that I was gay, that maybe the people around me in my life would reject me as a result of it. Growing up poor, black, and gay, I never imagined that someone like me could even run for Congress, let alone make that history that was described back in 2020. But my Jewish brothers and sisters, I don't have to tell you anything about trauma. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said once to the American Jewish Congress, our unity is born of our common struggle for centuries, not only to rid ourselves of bondage, but to make oppression of any people by others an impossibility. June is Pride Month, and next week marks the 53rd anniversary of the Stonewall riots, which took place in the heart of New York's 10th congressional district. In our community, we are walking in the footsteps of change makers, of ceiling breakers, and of those who risked everything to deliver progress for generations to come. We must celebrate that. How dare we not celebrate that? Pride is about rejoicing in the rich legacy of the LGBTQ plus organizers, including black and brown organizers and trans organizers like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, who built the organizations they needed to feel safe in their communities and transformed our country so that the future we are living out today would be possible and available to everybody. And yet we cannot celebrate Pride without pausing to reflect on the violent forces of oppression that met this movement of liberation. It was violence from the state-sponsored violence, get that? Violence from those with hatred in their hearts, and even violence from those who were too ignorant or uncaring to lift a finger to be helpful. That is a form of violence. I'm proud of the history I made, but it's critical that we not just settle for representation, my friends, but rather that we continue pushing forward for justice. We still live in a country where under federal law, LGBTQ plus individuals can be evicted from their homes or denied credit simply for being who they are or loving who they love. Where far too many LGBTQ plus couples are denied the opportunity to adopt children, or are at a minimum forced to overcome unjust barriers just to do so. Where trans people, and black trans women in particular, are being attacked and murdered at alarming rates just for living as their authentic selves, and that is just the start of it, as we know. Across the country, hundreds of anti-gay and anti-trans bills are being considered in state legislatures. So Pride, for me, and I know for all of you, and Stonewall, these are calls to action. It's why in Congress I was proud to help pass the Equality Act in the House, which includes my bill called the, yes, let's clap for the Equality Act. It's a package of bills that would finally enshrine under federal anti-discrimination law protections for our communities, and it includes my bill called the Juror Non-Discrimination Act. People still don't know that under federal law, you can still discriminate in the jury selection process, which is an assault on the whole idea of representative government and a real justice system. And of course, we still got to abolish the filibuster so that we can get this common sense legislation passed through the Senate. Yesterday, the Supreme Court struck down a 100-year-old New York law aimed at ending gun violence in at least this state. So we've got to be clear-eyed about the threats posed by that institution. And of course, Today, the constitutional right, the fundamental right to an abortion ceased to exist. These are horrifying times. And I knew, like many of you, like the rabbi, that we would reach this point. It's why more than a year ago, with my friend Jerry Nadler, I introduced legislation to add 4 seats to the Supreme Court of the United States. And I make no apology for that. We must be bold, and we must meet this moment. The size of the Supreme Court has changed 7 times before in our nation's history. Why could we not do something like that again? Do you know that after President Lincoln was assassinated, his vice president, Andrew Johnson, became president? And it turns out Andrew Johnson was not in favor of Reconstruction. Congress literally reduced the size of the Supreme Court to prevent him from getting opportunities to appoint pro-slavery justices to that institution. That is the kind of boldness that we need to see from the United States Congress today and from the President of the United States. Finally, and I'm closing, rights are very important, but so is equity. So is equity. I'm making sure that every single day my colleagues know that justice for the LGBTQ plus community is not just our right to marry and to be protected from discrimination, it's also universal health care. Because we know that, for example, Black queer folks continue to bear the brunt of the HIV/AIDS epidemic in this country. It's housing for everyone because we know that LGBTQ plus young people in particular experience homelessness at the rate of 2 times as much as their cisgendered heterosexual counterparts. As I told the president in the Roosevelt Room over a month ago, it is also student debt cancellation. Because it turns out that LGBTQ plus people disproportionately, in fact to the tune of, I think on average, $16,000 more than their cisgendered heterosexual counterparts, they experience student debt, and that's because they tend to lack disproportionately the familial supports to help them pay for a college education. That's how that works. And equity also looks like reforming our criminal legal system because we continue to be disproportionately represented within our carceral system. Shabbat marks a day of rest. As an organizer, and yes, as someone who has recently been cast into New York's redistricting drama, I know that we must always center a deep love for everyone, including ourselves. So rest is critical so that we together can push forward with the strength that we need to move mountains. Let us acknowledge that the queer liberation movement is only this strong today because of rooms like this one, where folks come together and bring their shared lived experiences to the table to fight for justice for each and every one of us, and for a lot of people who are not in this room with us today. Where we fashion a world in which the elementary school version of myself would feel safe, supported, and like he belonged, and yes, like he could one day run for the United States Congress. This is what I'm fighting for in Congress, and it's why I'm so proud to be with you here all today. Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Well, Mundir, if there's a Baptist church that doesn't want you, we want you. Page 52, Lechuna Ranana. Let's sing, let's have some joy here.
Let's
54, Shiru Ladonai, sing to God. Sing a new song. Page 62, please rise in body or spirit. Psalm 29. Please be seated. Here we are again at page 66. You know what this means. Page 66 is the medieval piyut, the psalm written by the Jews who were thrown out of Spain and Portugal, the Iberian Peninsula, when hatred for the Jews in that central location where Jews had been for hundreds and hundreds of years forced them to leave, stay and convert, or stay and be killed. This piyut was written in the midst of that destruction in the 1500s, written as an expression in the belief that a future is possible no matter what the degree of destruction is experienced. That the destruction itself is a foundation for the future, if we believe that to be true. So, what's the rule here? Sing it from the diaphragm, from your gut. You have to feel it with your whole body. If you don't know the words, hum along. But the idea is to really move through the ladder of all these verses from a place of despair and fear to find a way to let the music, either it around you or even within you, get into those spaces that need a little massage right now. Let the words of this piyut or the melody or the music or the environment in which you are right now massage those hurt places, the places of fear and anger and despair. There is a future, and we are the beginning of that future. Page 66. Sing it out. Joyce. I know, I don't want to go too far because, people, you're not following instructions. I don't know, how is it downstairs? From the diaphragm. Don't use your throat voice, don't use your face voice, your body. That's the point of singing is holy. You're using your actual physical air that makes you live into creating great art and great beauty. Darina, are you listening from Bulgaria? I want to hear you singing. Darina, I better hear you singing. Okay, let's try it again. If you can stand, stand up. Shema. We face the door to welcome in the Sabbath Queen.
בואי ושלום עטרת שכינה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה
Isn't that worth like 3 months of therapy? Please be seated. Except for the chorus. That helps us get ready for Psalm 92 on page 72. The psalm in which we focus on gratitude. We think of the things in our life, we focus on things for which we are grateful, no matter how big or bad the curses are. We're told to do this, lahagid baboker, to do it in the morning. The morning is when things are fresh and new and everything's possible. Okay, that might be an easy time to express gratitude. But we're also supposed to do it balelot, at nighttime, when we're exhausted, when there have been a lot of mistakes, or problems we can't solve, or failures, or depressing news. So we're supposed to do it in the morning when things are fresh, but we're also supposed to do it at night, when we have that 3 a.m. time in the soul, when we have anxiety and fear and depression. It's a muscle that we have to exercise. It doesn't come easily. You have to reach deep inside and find the muscle and look around for the blessings and express gratitude. It's a requirement to have a full spiritual life. There is no quick way to do it. It's like all exercise, it takes repetition. And it doesn't always happen well or easily. And you just keep trying. The distance between falling down and getting up, you just work on diminishing it just by a little bit. And for this, Tov Lahodot Ladonai, it is essential to give thanks to the one who has created us and to sing of this power, of this gift, and to express this gratitude in the morning when things are easy and at night when things are tarnished. To do it with music, to do it with friendship, to do it with faith. And then Tzadik Tamar Yifrach. The branches, the trees will flourish. But first we do the work, and sometimes it is work of gratitude. Psalm 92.
Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, uzamer l'shimcha elyon. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נוון, עלי היום וכינור, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נוון, עלי היום וכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
Please rise if you are able, page 78, the Baruch Hu.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Please be seated and join me in the words of the great American queer poet Walt Whitman on the top of page 84. I hear and behold God in every object. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something of God each hour of the 24, and each moment then. In the faces of men and women I see God, and in my own face in the glass. I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoe'er I go, others will punctually come forever and ever.
מעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני. המעריב ערבים, אמן.
Page 86.
אהבת עולם בישראל, עמך נשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נהגי יומם ולילה, נהגי יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם קרוב ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובפונך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Please continue with the paragraphs of the Ve'ahavta at your own pace through page 92.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
Before the Michamocha, a brief confession. Before I worked at CBST, I had not heard I am what I am. I thought that this was an art song that Joyce had found somewhere, and CBST was really into it, singing it for Michamocha. This is not because I am tragically hetero. This is because I was not born in 1983 when La Cage aux Folles came out. I thought La Cage aux Folles was a movie starring Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. Yes, somebody is here for me. Thank you. I did know Hello Dolly. Thank you. I didn't know. I didn't know until I became the rabbi of this place and until Pride Shabbat was a regular part of my Jewish calendar that Jerry Herman was such an incredible legend. Not just an extraordinary composer, an out gay man who was open about his HIV positive status, who wrote anthems, who wrote songs that exploded queer identity onto stage and screen, and for so many, how sacred this piece of music is. For me, the queer anthem is closer to Fine by the Indigo Girls. This dates me exactly. Many of you are like, she is a baby, and a couple of you are like, she is a dinosaur. And I'm looking at Gabe. I want everyone to take a minute and to think about what the anthem is for you. Is it I am what I am? Is it Alle Brüder? Is it Born This Way? Is it Seasons of Love? Is it True Colors? Is it something that I've never heard of? Is it something that is still to come in the service but we haven't sung yet? Is it something that's yet to be written? All of these are anthems because we sing them at top volume, because they make us feel more ourselves. I am what I am in so many different musical modes and languages and years. It is always true. And so I invite you to sing along with our CBST Community Chorus. On page 94, these words of liberation set to an anthem of liberation.
יעקב וגאלום יחזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני
Hold on to your anthem, whatever it is, whenever it was written. An anthem is a song that makes us feel safe. It is a song whose music envelops us and sees us, and we see ourselves in its words. It makes us feel safe to sing it at the top of our lungs. It means that no matter where we are when we think of its words, when it echoes in our minds and hearts, we feel safer. Hashkivenu is an anthem, and I know that so often we think of it as a lullaby. But this is a prayer about protection. This is a prayer that asks, may we be safe. May we be sheltered. May we be strong. May we have enough for ourselves. May we have enough to give to somebody else. There are so many things, so many moments, and so many places where we don't feel safe. And let the words of Hashkivenu, let this blessing of protection, let the words of your anthem be your blessing. May they bring you that power. May they bring you that sense of being unified with something much greater than yourself. All the others who love those words, all the others who are lifted out of themselves by them. Shelter us, guard us, keep us safe. let us know blessing. Let us be blessing. Page 98 and page 4 in your program.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom V'ha'amidenu Malkeinu L'chaim Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom V'ha'amidenu Malkeinu L'chaim Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Baruch ata Adonai Aporei sukat shalom aleinu Ve'al kol amo Yisrael Ve'al kol ha'amim Ve'al Yerushalayim Amen.
Shabbat in the Torah is described as Brit Olam, an everlasting covenant. Another sign of covenant is the rainbow. And we'll read that Torah portion as our maftir tomorrow morning for Pride Shabbat. I invite you to rise in body and spirit. Page 102 for Vishamru, thinking of all of the covenants that we keep.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית Shabbat vaynafash, Shabbat vaynafash, Shabbat vaynafash. Shamru b'nei Yisrael Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית
Following the recitation of Chatzi Kaddish on page 104, there will be opportunity for individual and silent prayer. Please pray at your own pace. Use the words of the Siddur. Use the words of the poet Marge Piercy on page 124. We will be reciting Al Hanisim in honor of Pride Shabbat together as a community. And when you feel complete, you can have a seat. Chatzi Kaddish is on page 104.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמא דברה קנותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביום מכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב וימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, ועל עמול על מעלמיה יתברך וישתבח, ויתפעל ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה. ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה בנחמתה, זמירן בעלמא ויאמרו
Please continue if you are inside your own prayers. I ask everyone else, please stand if you are able for the gay national anthem. Please be seated. I'm delighted that two of our former Cooperberg Ripmaster Rabbinical interns are here today, Rabbi Deborah Megdal, who's now in Baltimore, and Rabbi Mikey Goldstein, who is in Israel. So happy to have both of you, and Karen, it's wonderful having you back with us tonight. So great to have you. And now we get to celebrate our outgoing Cooperberg Ripmaster Rabbinical interns. This Friday night service, it's the last service that Sam last Friday night before he will become our full-time cantor, August 1st. So while he is actually a cantor, he's still our cantorial intern. So his full title is Cantorial Intern Cantor Sam Rosen. But as of August 1st, the internship, that's over. The internship ends really with this week. Sam will be off for the month of July and then come back on August 1st. And I'd like to invite our two current Cooperberg Rittmaster rabbinical interns who are indeed both rabbis at this point. We've had the fabulous opportunity to celebrate their ordinations here at CBST. So I'd like to invite Rabbi Dave Yedid and Rabbi Yael Werber to join us on the bima to lead us in Al Hanisim. And of course, we wish Dave and Daniel so much blessings on your journey. They're heading out to Denver, Colorado. This is the outdoorsy kind of guy. And he's been an incredible blessing at CBST. So he and Rabbi Yael Werber, who will be staying with us and coming back August 1st as our assistant rabbi, will lead us in the Al Hanisim prayer written by another former Cooperberg Rittmaster rabbinical intern, Ayelet Cohen, page 256, the special prayer for gay pride.
על הניסים ועל הפורקן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות שעשיתם לאבותינו ולאמותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. בימי התנועה לזכויות האזרח באמריקה קמה קהילת הגאים להילחם על הכבוד והצדק המגיעים לכל בני ובנות אנוש. כשמחללי שמך בטענתם שהם שונאים בשם אדוני, עמדו נגד בנייך ובנותייך, להשפילם ולאסרם, להשמידם ולמחקם, וברחמך הרבים עמדת להם בעת צרתם.
We thank you for the miraculous deliverance, for the heroism and for the triumphs in battle of our ancestors in other days and in our time. In the wake of the civil rights movement, lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, and transgender people began to organize for the dignity and justice that all of us are due as human beings on this earth. Those who profane your name, claiming that they hate us in the name of God, rose up to criminalize us, pathologize us, brutalize us, and erase us. And you, in your great mercy, stood with us in the time of our troubles. Ravta et ribam, danta et dinam, chazakta et libam la'amod bayachad, lifkoach et einehem ve'et einei ha'olam, להבין שהחירות והזכות לאהוב שייכות לכל יצורותייך, חיזקת אותם ואותנו כדי שנוכל לראות נפלאות ולעשות ניסים, להיות אשר נהיה ולאהוב את מי שנאהב, לא בצל מגורנו אלא באור החיים, לחיות כיהודים בחיק הקהילה, לקדש את אחודנו ולהסיס עלינו ועליך אבן מסו הבונים הייתה לראש פינה ולא נבוש ולא נקלם לעולם ועד.
You fought alongside us, vindicated us, gave us the courage to stand together, to open our eyes and the eyes of the world around us, to see that freedom and the right to love belongs to all of your creations. You have given us the strength to witness and to create wonders, to be who we are and love whom we love, not only in the safety of our homes, but outside in the light of the world, to live as Jews in the embrace of community, to sanctify our unions and celebrate ourselves before each other and before you. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. May we never know shame again.
And now, with the three of you standing up together, would the three of you stand here for a moment? So these three have been just extraordinary this year, working together, learning together, having fun together, and really becoming an important presence in the life of our community. So on behalf of everybody, we have a few little gifts for them, but we're going to give them now. This is to you, Rabbi Werber.
Thank you. Wow.
This is to you, Rabbi. So these gifts are concrete expressions of our love, our appreciation, and our commitment to the three of you. 2 of you are staying at CBST full-time as of August 1st, but we never let you go. So may all 3 of you be blessed every day of your life with the sense of this community surrounding you, supporting you, and giving you love and God's presence. Amen. Amen.
We continue with our prayer for healing, page 130. Mishaberach imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Bilha v'Zilpa v'avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Bilha and Zilpa, Avraham Yitzchak and Yaakov bless us too. Bless us and heal all those who are ill. Bless Harry Alberts, Dov Bear, Erica Foreman, Alan Messer, Brian Michael, Barbara Monis, Barbara Newman Rappaport, Jim Rail, Cheryl Schlossberg, Rose Wachnun, Shep Wachnun, Deborah Dolgen-Wolf, Mordechai ben Nachman Vibela Rivka, Shmuel Pinchas ben Hinda, Zev Wolf ben Esther Miriam, and all of those whom we name in the chat or speak out loud at this moment. May all of them be blessed with a full and complete healing, a healing of spirit and a healing of body, together with those who are ill among the Jewish people and among the world. May those who will not be healed on this earth be blessed with nights free from suffering and days filled with peace. May God grant strength and comfort to those who care for the sick. May God help us to find hope and courage as we face fear and loss. May all who are ill be surrounded by the love of friends, loving companions, families, and community. Let us all say, Amen. To lead us in the prayer for our country tonight, it is my absolute delight to invite the 2 newest members of the Jewish people. Over the past week at CBST, we welcomed 2 people who have been in the process of becoming Jewish over a year, Becca Boston and Michael Jacobs. Becca is in the outskirts of Portland, Oregon, and she will lead us in the beginning of the prayer tonight, which can be found in your program. And Michael is here tonight, and I would love Michael to join me at the bima to pick up where Rebecca leaves off.
Hey there, I'm excited to join you for this Pride Shabbat, and I have been asked to record the Prayer for Our Country by Rabbi Ayla Cohen. Our God and God of our ancestors, bless this country and all who dwell within it. Help us to experience the blessings of our lives and circumstances, and to be vigilant, compassionate, and brave. Strengthen us when we are afraid, and help us to channel our anger so that it motivates us to action. Help us to feel our fear so that we do not become numb. Help us to be generous with others so that we raise each other up. Help us to be humble in our fear, knowing that as vulnerable as we feel, there are those at greater risk, and that it is our holy work to stand with them. Help us to taste the sweetness of liberty, to not take for granted the freedoms won in generations past or in recent days, to heal and nourish our democracy, that it may be like a tree planted by the water, whose roots reach down in the stream. It need not fear drought when it comes, its leaves are always green. Jeremiah 17:8.
Source of all life, guide our leaders with righteousness, strengthen their hearts, but keep them from hardening, that they may use their influence and authority to speak truth and act for justice. May all who dwell in this country share in its bounty, enjoy its freedoms, and be protected by its laws. May this nation use its power and wealth to be a voice for justice, peace, and equality for all who dwell on earth. May we be strong and have courage, to be bold in our action and deep in our compassion, to discern when we must listen and when we must act, to uproot bigotry, intolerance, misogyny, racism, discrimination, and violence in all its forms, to celebrate the many faces of God reflected in the wondrous diversity of humanity, to welcome the stranger and the immigrant, and to honor the gifts of those who seek refuge and possibility here, as they have since before this nation was born. Let justice well up like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
And let us say,
Amen.
This was a week where we needed to hear both halves of the prayer for our country. And Michael and Becca, we desperately needed to hear them in your voices, you who chose us. I want to give both of you a blessing. To you, Moshe ben Avraham v'Sara. To you, Rivka Svia bat Avraham v'Sara. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God protect you and may God keep you safe. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. May God's face light up when you enter a room. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God give you the blessing of shalom, of wholeness and completion and peace. Mazel tov. We rise, if it is your custom, on page 138 for Kaddish Shalem.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועל מדירה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חונה וימכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואימרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם עולם ועלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפעל ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואימרו אמן תתקבל צלות הון ובוד הון דכל ישראל קודם ובהון דיבי שמיה ואימרו אמן יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואימרו אמן עושה שלום ממרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
Please be seated. Well, we always say these are the second high holidays of CBST. And as Irving Cooperberg would say, the only Jews still having services when CBST finishes high holiday services live in Hawaii. So this is us. Jeffrey, it's us. It's us. So we're thrilled tonight, and I just want to do a couple of welcomes. Joyce and I were just saying how thrilling it is to have the room filled with so many voices, so much breathing, so much energy. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's an amazing act of faith, and we're in such strange times, so it's so wonderful to have everyone here, and thank you everybody who's downstairs in the Wolfson room. We love you so much, so happy you're here, and thank you to everybody who's joining us on live stream. I want to also offer a couple of welcomes. We have some rabbis with us that deserve a little welcome. Rabbi David Schmidt-Chapman, CBST's. David was vice president of the CBST board and left us to go to rabbinical school. Can you imagine such a thing? Harold, are you next? And we're thrilled to see you here. Our love to you and to Jonathan. And we're so excited because David is going to be going to Chicago and will be within 8 minutes of where his parents live. So as a parent, I'm very happy for you. I'm sad New York is losing you, but we're so happy to have you here. I'm thrilled that Rabbi Joel Mosbacher is here with us tonight. And Joel's kid, Ari, has become a beloved part of the CBST staff. So we're so happy, Ari, that you brought your whole family tonight. We're really happy to have you here. Rabbi Camille Angel is here somewhere tonight. I don't know where she is exactly. And so we're really happy. Any other rabbis or cantors in the house? Over here. Hello. Yes, hello. We have Melanie. It's so great to have you here. And is your whole family there? It's hard to see up there. Just Hope? Just Hope. But I figured if Hope's... Ami's downstairs. Okay, great. Well, so happy to have you here, Melanie, another rabbi in our congregation. So tonight we are very excited. What? Oh, and Rabbi Joe Hirschman. I didn't see you back there. Hi. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. So happy to have you. Anybody else? Just stand up because it's hard for me to see. And of course, Rabbi Nancy Weiner in our chorus. We have a very rabbinic crowd. Okay. So I'm very excited about tonight. Actually, many years ago, Jeffrey did a program for CBST for our Rosh Pinah program, and it was so thrilling, and that was years before Hamilton. Correct? So Jeffrey Seller is a beloved member of CBST, and Jeffrey's son, Tommy, who's here with us tonight, has grown significantly since his bar mitzvah. But Tommy, it's really special to have you here with us tonight. I want to say how much pleasure it gives me to see you here. And can I tell people what you just told me when you came up before? Tommy said to me he wants to come back every Friday night. We won't keep you to every Friday night, Tommy, but just know you're so welcome here. It's so good to see you, and I'm so proud of you. Tommy just graduated 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Just graduated high school. So we're so happy to have you here, Tommy. So we at CBST care deeply about politics. We care deeply about social justice. We care deeply about the arts. We understand that the arts are a really significant part of the transformation of the world, of the nourishing of our souls so that we could even survive. And it, in no small measure, do we value the arts in the same way that we value the other pieces of what it is to express our humanity. I mean, look at what Joyce Rosenzweig has created here with this chorus to bring the level of music to CBST and to engage a full-time cantor so that we can continually increase the level of music as an access to the divine. So we're going to do something a little unusual tonight, although we did it several times in Zoom world. So we've learned different things. We're going to do a conversation between me and Jeffrey Seller. And Jeffrey is going to talk. I'm going to interview him. And I know that for some of you seated in some of the back rows, it'll be hard to see, but Jason is also going to put up on the screens this, so those downstairs and on live stream, and if you have blocked vision, you could also look at the screens to hear this conversation. Jeffrey is an American theatrical producer. He has worked on Rent, In the Heights, Avenue Q, and Hamilton, among others. These are some of the iconic theater pieces of our generation, and they speak to this question, I think, very profoundly about the role and the nature of art, but specifically through a lens of LGBT Jewish eyes, what and how do we understand art and theater in particular? So Jeffrey, I'm going to invite you to have a seat, and I'm going to join you in our studio.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all.
And this being the strange times of COVID that it is, but we're so grateful to be in person. Jeffrey is testing negative, but recently was near somebody who was positive, so he's keeping his mask on. And I tested negative today, and I haven't been around, so I'm with my mask off, as our leadership always are. But we're so grateful that we're in person. We'll live with a mask, right? We're so grateful. So Jeffrey, so great to see you here.
Everything about this service is stimulating, is inspiring, and so many things make me cry. And we may not even get to those questions, because when Rabbi Rappaport got up here and started talking about this anthem that she was not aware of because it didn't come from the Mike Nichols movie with Nathan Lane and Robin Williams, I went straight back to being 19 years old and watching the Tony Awards in June of 1984. And what I experienced that night, and I watched the Tony Awards every single year from 1978 until the present, was that two things happened.
Well, and a couple of those Tony Awards, we've seen you up on the stage, Jeffrey.
And I guess about 4 of them.
Yes.
I'd say I only go to win. Otherwise, I'm in bed watching it with Josh, with ice cream. Yeah, but that night, I watched George Hearn do I Am What I Am, and it transformed what was possible. And then at the end of that telecast, I watched the cast of Sunday in the Park with George sing the most beautiful choral song I think I had ever heard in my life, which of course was Sunday from Sunday in the Park with George. And, you know, these are the moments that transform our lives and point us toward the future. And I thank you for bringing that up. And just like listening to the Judy play the clarinet is to know that we are in the presence of theater.
And that's interesting you say that, because I have a theater background from my adolescence, and my goal in creating a religious service is that people should feel as connected and as moved as they do in great theater. And when people say, oh, they don't want a rabbi or a cantor to perform, that feels negative or empty, I think, wow, a great actor is performing, but it's not fake, it's art. And if we can, in a religious service, create a space in which people feel the kinds of feelings they'll feel in a great piece of theater, then I think God is present. I've done my job. And
yes.
I think too many people who run religious services are so afraid of creating experiential moments that are so emotionally deep. So I'm grateful to that relationship of theater and religion. So let me ask you a couple of these, because I think people will be really eager to hear some of this, and then you can riff on it as you want, which Jeffrey could speak for a long time, as you can imagine, about any of these. Tommy is giving me those eyes that only his 18-year-old son can give. So what role do you see theater playing in responding to the brokenness of the world? Are there any expressions that you've experienced in your vast history? Oh, by the way, we should say that that La Cage aux Folles, didn't it win that year?
Yes, it won the
It won
Tony that year, beating Sunday in the Park with George,
Right.
which was its own controversy.
Right.
But Sunday in the Park at least won the Pulitzer Prize for drama.
Right. And I just want to say one other thing, because Stephen Sondheim, the great gay Jewish composer, died this year.
Yes.
And if folks aren't aware that the casts of many, many, many Broadway shows gathered in Times Square, and they sang that song Sunday as a tribute to Stephen Sondheim, either the day he died or soon after. It was
Yes,
very,
that weekend. He died the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was very, very moving. So how do you see the role of arts in general and theater specifically?
I have two responses to that. One is that when you do a show, you don't know what impact it's going to have on the world. I just try to please myself. But what we discovered over the years of doing Rent was that it was a response to the broken world of the late 80s and the early 90s. It was a response to the draconian police measures that Rudy Giuliani, do you remember that criminal? Implemented in his 8 years as mayor of New York City. It was a response to the neglect of the successive Republican administrations toward the AIDS crisis. But you know what else it was? It was hope for the future. Because what it did is it showed young people, it showed all people, but what I'm particularly proud of is that it showed teenagers that they could have a life as a gay man, as a lesbian woman, as a trans person. They could make a family. They could be in love. And they could have the same kind of rich, fulfilling life that heretofore it felt as if we could only watch the straight people have those lives. And in a recent pitch I was making to try to get more funding for arts education, it was a medical scientist who told me that the rate of teenage suicide was positively affected by Rent. Rent saved teenagers' lives. So that's one way.
So I don't think everybody here knows how you got to Jonathan Larson and how you got to Rent. Would you tell how you met Jonathan Larson?
Yeah. I can't do it without crying. And maybe I still feel guilty because Jonathan died. I don't know, but I was a producer wannabe in New York, and I was doing shows with my friends at night. When I first got to New York, I was directing community theater at Road of Shalom on West 83rd Street. Tell me about it. I'll tell you about it on another night. I still remember, Janet. I remember all their names. But so my whole thing was to get my friends and do shows at night. And one night, a friend of mine invited me to see something called a rock monologue, and I'd never even heard those two words, rock and monologue, put together. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. So we went up to this little theater space. It was actually on the Upper West Side. Brick wall in the back, piano, drums, guitar, bass, and out comes this tall, lanky fellow with curly black hair and big ears, and he sits down at the piano and he attacks. And that was Jonathan Larson. And he was performing what was his monologue called Boho Days that night, that many of you now know because he changed the title, because his producer asked him to Tick Tick Boom. And that night, watching Jonathan
and who was that producer?
And that was me. I'm good with the titles. In any event, he was telling the story of being a 30-year-old composer of rock musicals that nobody wants to produce. He was telling the story of how do I be an artist when I can't pay the rent, there's a bathtub in my kitchen, the roommates are coming and going, and I don't have health insurance. Should I give it up? Should I go get a job on Madison Avenue in an ad agency? Or should I keep engaging in this quixotic effort? Should I stay with the girlfriend I know is really not right for me because I'm afraid of being alone? Or should I be brave enough to tell her we're not right for each other? And those stories told through song moved me so powerfully that I wrote him a letter the next day and I said, I want to produce your musicals. And that was in 1990. And Rent, of course, was the culmination of our professional friendship, which opened, had its first preview on January 25th of 1996 at New York Theater Workshop. And for those of you that don't know this tragedy, Jonathan died of an aortic aneurysm 3 hours after the final dress rehearsal. And he never saw Rent open. And he never saw Rent go to Broadway. And he was not present when he won the Tony Award for Best Book and Best Score and the Pulitzer Prize for Drama and our prize for Best Musical.
I think we have to talk about Sarah Krolwich here.
That's how I met Sarah.
So Sarah, who's also a beloved CBS team member and was the New York Times theater photographer, still is and was then, was actually doing a photo essay about Jonathan Larson and Rent the night, I guess, at the dress rehearsal.
Yeah, at the dress rehearsal.
So you tell the story as...
Sure. Sarah was assigned to cover the dress rehearsal because the music critic, who many of you know and probably admired, Anthony Tomasini, was there to write a feature article on the fact that this was a modern day La Boheme exactly 100 years later. It was the 100th anniversary of La Boheme. So that was the angle in which our publicist was able to entice the New York Times to do a story. So Tomasini watched the show, an editor was there to watch the show. Sarah took photos, took a photo of Jonathan and director Michael Greif on the set after the show came down. And I remember watching that. And when I left the theater, Jonathan went to the only quiet place in the theater, which was the box office, to sit with Anthony Tomasini. And I remember him, the smile on his face, because I know what he was thinking, which is I finally got my interview with the New York Times. And that's how Rent became, in Sarah's words, it's our story. And the New York Times covered it voraciously over the next months and years.
And those photos of Sarah's are now the iconic photos of Jonathan's last hours. Really. Those photos are now the famous photos of Jonathan Larson. And
I will also tell you one more funny Sarah story. So then we did become friendly over the years, and she was right behind me at the Tony Awards for In the Heights. And we like to think that when you do the Tony Awards, it's everything spontaneous, but not where I live. So we had a very good feeling that we would win for Best Musical. So then my then business partner and I, Kevin, had worked up this whole thing where we would get Lin-Manuel Miranda on our shoulders, because I said, I want the front page of the paper tomorrow, and I know how to get it. And I said, Sarah, stand up and get ready, because I'm going to give it to you. And we won that Tony. We got on stage. And by the way, I had 3 guys right behind me. We had we'd choreographed this with our choreographer, Andy Blingabula. And we got Lynn up on our shoulders, and we love that picture to this day.
That's fantastic. So Lin-Manuel Miranda, so you've had these partnerships with 2 of the great theater personalities of our time. How did you get to Lin-Manuel Miranda? But I don't know if you know this story, that Lin went to high school with my daughter.
Yes, at Hunter.
At Hunter.
Yes.
And so I've known him since he was 16 years old.
Which is amazing.
And he directed, when he was a senior, the high school musical. Hunter, the students direct the musicals. And he directed West Side Story.
Yes.
And to this day, it's the best theater production of West Side Story I've ever seen. Directing these teenage kids, he understood that kind of passion of, it's really a story of teenagers, not
100%.
Not 30-year-olds.
Yes.
And it was an amazing experience, and he produced that year as well as an original production. And Bobby Lopez was a year or 2 ahead. So
and then, of course, my other great collaborators, Bobby Lopez,
who
wrote Avenue Q and the Book of Mormon, and with his wife, Kristen Anderson Lopez.
So when I saw West Side Story, Bobby Lopez was sitting behind me in the Hunter High School auditorium. Because he had graduated a few years before, and so Bobby Lopez and his wife wrote Avenue Q. So do you want to talk about any of those people?
Well, I think the one thing I would say about Avenue Q and Rent is that, as we sit here celebrating what it means to be gay, what it means to engage in pride, what it means to be a practitioner in the theater, what it means to be a Jew, I think the holy trifecta is gay, Jew, and theater. Without which there is no West Side Story, ladies and gentlemen, right? There is no modern theater. There is no Rodgers and Hammerstein. There is no Harold Arlen and Irving Berlin and Yip Harburg. But what I would say about that is that one of the things that I was so proud of in doing Avenue Q 5 or 6 years after doing Rent was that in many ways Avenue Q was Rent with puppets. And if you look at it, it was all about young people trying to figure out, once again, who am I? Where am I? I think you would say, Ayecha. Is that the word? I'll never forget that from Rosh Hashanah, because I ask it all the time, where am I? And
somebody pays attention. Amazing. Amazing.
I've stolen it so many times, Rabbi. But once again, Avenue Q is about that dilemma. And when I had my first experience of watching a workshop and I saw those two puppets, right, Rod and Nikki, and Rod starts singing, or Nikki starts singing to Rod, if you were gay, that'd be okay. I mean, 'cause hey, I'd like you anyway. I was in. First of all, I was laughing off of my seat, but then I was in because those puppets were able to communicate with a sense of riskiness and bawdiness, but also humanity that made them so special. And once again, here was a show that could celebrate what it means to come out. And I'm always amazed because when we look at young people, we look at the fantastic representative in Congress, Mondaire, and he talked about how hard it is to come out. And this is a young man. And it's still hard. And it's hard for Rod, and that's what these shows do. And that's what, those of you who haven't seen it yet, A Strange Loop is still doing right now on Broadway. And you must go see that this summer if you haven't yet, because it will move you, and it will make you laugh, and it will incite some interesting feelings and ideas inside of you.
There's another thing I don't think I ever told you, Jeffrey, and this is a good opportunity to tell you. But
we're like confession.
I know, it's kind of confessional. On July 24th, 2011, which was the first day that marriage was legal for gay people in New York, and we had a pop-up chuppah down by the municipal building, and I was marrying people as they came out of the municipal building. I married the Avenue Q puppets. They were there.
We would do anything for publicity.
There's a great picture of me kissing one of them, which just confirms all the worst things that the right wing says about us, right?
I love, yes.
So I know we can.
Do we have a word for that? Puppets. Yeah.
So is there anything you want to end with? We could go on for a long time, and we would love to be able to do that, and we're going to get you back a different time when we can continue. But in thinking about this thing about the Jewish LGBT lens in art, anything else you have to say as we face these difficult days ahead?
Oh my gosh. I can't separate those things from myself. I have my own opinions. When I look at what happens today and what happens every day, you know what I want to say to the other states? I'm tired. Can we just get a divorce? Let's just make two countries. It's like enough. But that's not a theatrical. That's just me. But we persevere. And the day after that awful day, the first Tuesday in November in 2016, I sat with the Hamilton Company on Broadway, and Mexican Americans said, I am afraid now that I will be a victim of violence. I heard Black Americans say, well, we always knew this is the way it is, so now we're going to have to fight even harder. And when we did that performance that day, the audience had a sense of ownership that was even greater than it was the week before. Because Hamilton and Lynn's words guide us toward what is possible, toward the best manifestation of who we are as Americans and as human beings. And, as we say this tonight at 9 o'clock or whatever it is right now, it's like Les Mis, right? 3 hours, 15 minutes. Rabbi, I got to tell you one thing. 10 years in the Les Mis, they did cut 15 minutes. So maybe you guys should talk about that at the board meeting.
But La Boheme is 3 hours.
Only at the Met because of those intermissions. I did it in 2. The Baz Luhrmann production. But in any event, it leads us the way. And as we sit here, Hamilton's on Broadway, and Hamilton's in 3 different cities throughout the U.S., including selling out in Greenville, South Carolina. Okay? We play those places, and people want to see it. And that helps our democracy, because it reinforces our democracy. And our job right now is to protect our democracy and to reinforce our democracy and keep going.
And the art that you're responsible for, Jeffrey, is such a big part of what makes it possible for all of us to keep going. So thank you for everything that you do.
What a pleasure to be here and to celebrate with all of you.
Come on, we can all do this.
600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear. 600 minutes, how do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, and laughter, in strife, in 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of love. Seasons of love. 525,600 minutes. 525,000 journeys to plan. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a life of a woman or a man? In truth that she learned, or in times that he cried, in bridges he burned, or the way that she died. Though the story never ends, let's celebrate, remember, even the life of friends. Remember the love. Remember the love. Remember the love. Measure in love. Measure your life in love. Seasons of
Can you do You'll Be Back? And now we go to words of another kind of Hallel. If you are able to, please stand, page 166. Praise the Lord. Page 166. page 140. Please remain standing.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שברא אותנו בצלמו, ונפח בנו את נשמת חיינו, שהעמיק אותנו בלימוד תורתו, וקידשנו במצוותיה. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שבונות השמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבות בלבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר וחיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Please be seated. We pause now, as we do in every single Jewish service, to remember those on whose shoulders we stand, those who are no longer with us, those who have died in recent days or in seasons past. We mark the yahrzeits tonight of CBST members Jean Dolgen, Gary Arst, Cecilia Urban, Sheila Michaels, Ruth Selman, family and friends Richard Austin, Betty Rosenfeld, Naomi Elson, Michael Stowe, Brian Feinsilver, Estelle Greenberg, William Zallen, Morris Deutsch, Paula Ingerman Zeller, Charlotte Katz, Ellen Leipzig, Bertram Kartzman, Florence Levine, Rita Waldor, Adam Greenfield, Cecilia Winshower, Claire Zarinsky, Alfred Baslow, Solomon Pavlov, Betty Sull, Leslie Schneider, Leslie Myers, Joseph Pollack, Julie Schuldener, Moisha Kershon, and Morris Levy. We extend our deepest condolences as a community to CBST member Merritt Oppenheim on the death of her mother Ruth, who died on June 19th. If you are in mourning or observing a yahrzeit, or if it's your custom to stand for the Mourner's Kaddish, please do so. It's on page 150 of our Siddur, and it will be on the screen. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divra kerutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'yimru, Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach li'olam omei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'alma v'yimru, Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshrei tevel v'yimru. Amen. May the one who brings peace in the heavens bring comfort to everyone who mourns here on earth. And let us say, Amen. And now I'm delighted to invite Sabrina Farber to offer announcements. And it will be Rosh Hashanah soon.
Thank you, Rabbi. Of course, there's nothing that I could possibly say that could top anything that has gone on tonight. So I'm just going to proceed in an orderly fashion. Happy Pride and Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to CBST, to all of you here in the sanctuary, those of you downstairs in the Evan Wolfson room, those of you online. It is so, so great to celebrate Pride with you here tonight. Thank you to our Baal Tefillah, Cantor Sam Rosen. I'm just going to call him Cantor Sam Rosen because it's easier. And thanks to our musical director, Joyce Rosenzweig. Thank you so much to the CBST chorus, whose presence takes us to another level. Don't we love them? Thanks to Judy Ribnick for sharing her clarinet with us. Thanks also to our percussionist, Barbara Friedman. And hats off to Janet Pavlov for sounding the shofar with such koach. I don't know about you, but I had to take a few deep breaths when that was over. Thank you so much to Representative Mondaire Jones for your Pride greetings. Thanks to Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum and Rabbi Yael Rapport for service leadership. And thanks also to CBST member Jeffrey Seller, our Pride speaker. Thank you, Jeffrey. And that's what you see. What you don't see is thanks to Jason Zivick for the tech wizardry. Thank you to Sharon Golub for online chat duties. Thanks to all of our ushers, Lynn, Sally, Larry, Lori, Gomez. I'm sure I'm missing someone. And thank you so, so much for our ASL interpreters, Craig Fogel and Aaron Roden. And more behind the scenes people, thank you to Yolanda Potasinski, who makes the ship run every day. Nisha Biederman, Jorge Loyola, and the other staff and volunteers, and there are many of them who made tonight happen. Join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. for our special Pride edition of Liberal Minyan services, as well as our Aleph Bet Shabbat and Limud, not to mention the Pride Teen Track Bake-Off that happens at 1:30. Plans are in place for a huge, multifaceted Pride celebration for kids on Saturday as we close out this Limud year and say Lehitraot, but she's not leaving, to Principal Jennifer Kleinbaum. Join us on Zoom tomorrow night at 8:30 for Havdalah, led by Rabbi Yael Rapport. And I'm happy to tell you that Pride Weekend in New York, as you know, brings many marches, brings many brunches, and of course, rainbows galore. CBST is participating in pretty much everything, from the Dyke March tomorrow evening, to the New York Pride Brunch on Sunday morning, to the Reclaim Pride March, and the New York City Pride March, both happening midday on Sunday. The details are voluminous. Check out the e-news and our website for details and meetup locations for the CBST groups. One final word. Looking ahead to the High Holy Days, as Rabbi Kleinbaum alluded to, we're just around the corner from Rosh Hashanah. I wanted to share some important news. The Javits Center is not available to us this year because of Comic-Con, which is unfortunate, but there's nothing we can do about that. However, I am delighted to tell you that we will be gathering in person at Masonic Hall with family and children's programming taking place here at 30th Street. We will be able to welcome all members to any services they wish to attend, and as many non-members as possible in the rest of the available seats. We will, of course, continue to offer a broadcast quality live stream. We are working now on all the details and members' priority registration process, so please stay tuned, and thank you to everyone who made those decisions possible. Before I leave, which I promise will be momentarily, I do want to remind you that there are CBST t-shirts for sale as you leave the building. To the left, Ruth Kleinman will be in the office selling t-shirts. We won't take any money, but we will take your names, and we will find you, and we will charge you. Shabbat Shalom and Happy Pride.
There are so many wonderful sponsorships and supporters. Please read all of the names in the program that you have, as well as Jason will, whatever you call that, put it on the screen. That's big words, put it on the screen. And the program, of course, has much material about all the things tonight, but tonight we close the service before we say Kiddush and Motzi, for those who will It's on page 5. One of the things we become aware of is this passage of time and the role we each play in being part of the passage from generation to generation. Page 5. We are gifts and we are blessings. We are history and song. We are hope and we are learning to be strong. Page 5, L'Dor Vador, from generation to generation. Please stand if you are able.
We are gifts and we are blessings. We are history in song. We are hope and we are healing. We are learning to be strong. We are words and we are stories. We are pictures of the past. We are carriers of wisdom, not the first and not the last. L'Dor Vador, nagid kol lecha. L'Dor Vador, we protect this chain. From generation to generation, L'Dor Vador, these lips shall praise your name. Looking back on the journey that we carry in our hearts, from the shadow of the mountain to the waters that would part. We are blessed and we are holy. We are children of your way, and the words that bring us meaning, we will have the strength to say. L'Dor Vador, nagid kol lecha. L'Dor Vador, we protect this chain. From generation to generation, L'Dor Vador, these lips shall praise your name. L'Dor Vador, nagid kol lecha. L'Dor Vador, we protect this chain. From generation to generation, L'Dor Vador, these lips shall praise your name. L'Dor Vador, nagid kol lecha. L'Dor Vador, we protect this chain. From generation to generation, L'Dor Vador, these lips shall praise your name.
Please remain standing for Kiddush.
Kiddush. Kiddush. Let's do Kiddush. They tried to kill us, we eat. Okay. Stay up here. Stay.
יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. סברי חבריי וחברותיי, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. קיוונו בחרת ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
We're all connected.
Up there, you gotta connect up there. Up there, no connection.
Baruch atah Adonai